Hello, this is going to be a short video addressing what I term as center frame. It may not be the best term for it, but it's what we're going with. Okay, this is kind of an ongoing argument I've had personally with some other people online, some fairly well known people on the opposition side, who don't seem to understand this. What normally happens is I show something dropping from below center frame, and then I'm asked, is my camera level and is the table level and all this kind of thing. Now, they are valid points, and I understand people asking those things. But see, the thing about it is that if you got a surface that you're using a camera on, and that surface is inclining or declining, let's just say, then if you level your camera, let's just say, then your camera, if it's declining away from you, then if you level your camera, then your camera's level will be not perpendicular with that table. If the table or surface is inclining away from your camera lens and you level your camera, then your camera lens will not be perpendicular with that surface. So when you level your camera to be what is level, then what happens is that it's not perpendicular with the surface. So what you need to do is have it so it is showing a level center frame, but not level with, let's just say, what would be determined as absolute level of the ground. It has to be level with the surface it's on, or it has to be able to make a right angle with the surface it's on to be perpendicular to that. And so this is kind of a thing that is ongoing, but it's ending now. Okay, the basic argument comes from this, and this is where it started. This is where it started for me as well. Was with Jesse Kozlowski, sorry, the geodetic surveyor on the board side of this argument. Sorry about this. This is nonsense. Okay, this is one of Jesse's photographs where he's looking across a lake. I think this, I'm not sure if this one is from a bit over a mile or a bit under. I think this one is from a bit under a mile, this particular one. And he's looking through the crosshairs of his theodolite. And this other theodolite here, marker here, is at the same height as his theodolite, the center of this. So he sees that his crosshairs are above this, and he sees, and of course, I understand it. He's thinking, well, the crosshair should be here. If the earth is flat, the crosshair should be here. The fact that the crosshairs are above, that shows that there's curvature going on, right? Even though the lake is absolutely flat. So what happened, right? So there's the first photograph showing this thing, and here is from another observation he did, showing something similar. Okay, so there is the where he feels he's the height that he feels like his crosshair should be at, but they're actually up here, right? Now he's not understanding this. He's seeing it as curvature. Now I've told him. When I say I didn't tell him. I had it out with him over a couple of days, not just to and fro on YouTube, and he shared a lot of links with me and stuff like that. About 2 years ago or more, whenever it was, when he first came out with these. And I pointed out to him that what that actually is just angular size change to the object at a distance. And it's not actually going below his center frame. This actually, in a straight line, is to here. In a dead straight line, that's absolutely flat and level, not level with, I'm not talking as in what he would see as level, or the boys I'd see as level, which is level to a curve. I don't, not like that. I'm talking about level, construction level, where if in a dead straight line, his actual crosshairs will be in directly straight line here. In a dead straight line, it appears that it's not, okay? And I'm going to show in a minute how that can happen. Okay, it just appears that way. Same in this one. This one's more clear. It just appears that he's not in line with this. He actually is in line with it, in a direct line, but it appears he's not. That's all it is. So what happens is people, when I've shown this before, people have misunderstood it, and they've tried to show tests or little demonstrations to show where I did it wrong or how I'm wrong. And some of what they did, I'll just show here now, is they will start with the object they're using, right? back from the camera lens, center of the camera lens, okay? And if you can see this little area here, a little bit of writing, this is below the center frame, or appears to be below the center frame. Now you can see here I'm using, this is, you'll see it in the video in a minute, this is a plumb bob, this is using a plumb bob, and this here is the tilt forward and back, and over here you can't see the zero here, but this is the level left to right, but the main part here is the tilt forward and back. And this is much better than, because if I level if I use the level app, or the level option on this, to level my center frame, especially if it's in portrait mode, what will happen is I'll have to level it so it won't be perpendicular with the surface I'm on. So consequently, the center frame will either be up in the air if the surface is inclining or declining, or is declining. The center frame will be up in the air, and if it's inclining, the center frame will meet here, even though in portrait mode my phone will be over 4.5 inches high. Sorry, the lens is over 4.5 inches high. Yet it would meet here, the center frame. So that's a bit of an issue. Okay. And anyone can, I have photographs to prove that and everything, so it's not just an assertion based on nothing. And I've even shown it on a well-known Globe channel in the past few weeks. That exact thing, where my center frame meets in the wrong place. It couldn't meet there, considering the actual height of the lens. So my center frame can't be where it's showing. And the reason it is there is because I had to level the camera lens on the phone so that it's level with what level would be with the ground. But it's not because of that. It's not perpendicular with the surface it's on. It's not level with the surface it's on. It's only level with a general level of the ground underneath it. Whereas the surface is on is maybe inclining or declining, so it's not perpendicular. Okay, it's not right angle. Okay, so what happens normally is people who make videos to disprove this, they start in this position, and from here they'll have another piece maybe next to here. There's a channel called Monkey Business, is the name of the channel, and he did this exactly like this, and he wasn't trying to be tricky, he wasn't trying to be deceiving, he was just, this is what he did because he wasn't understanding what I was trying to show. He had other pieces, they were like small pieces of chipboard or something like that, and he had them all lined up in a line, so they were all meeting, and a line annotated across his screen, so they're all meeting at that line. And he was moving some of them back and moving them back forward, and they didn't seem to be dropping below the line here too much at all. They seemed to be holding that line. But see, what I'm going to show in this video is that when you start with your camera, just going to make this bigger, your camera, with the piece closer to the camera lens, right, and then you move it back, that's when it's at that point that the majority of the drop of the center frame happens. Same with this one, I have it even closer. Right, sorry, there now. This is right, sorry, right. Have this even closer. Okay, it's a bit blurred because it's up so close to the lens, but here you can see that you can see that how close it is. Yet as it moves back, right, it's not too much there because it's only about moving back a bit and focusing. So it's at to dropping a tiny bit, and then it goes there. It's at to dropping more. Okay, so I'm going to show in a minute, right, that what happens is that when something is up close to the lens, it is actually the same exact height as the lens. It's actually in exact alignment with the lens. But when you move it back, it automatically, because your field of view becomes bigger, and angular size change happens. What happens is things have an area of time where they start to drop below the center frame. And I didn't fully understand this myself. I just knew that this effect was happening, but I'm getting a better understanding now. And then after a certain point, it doesn't continue to drop to the same amount. It will still drop, but it won't appear to drop to the same amount because our field of view is becoming bigger, but it is still dropping. But the first bit of moving it away from the lens, it does appear to drop below center frame. And so if you look again at Jesse's photographs, this one in particular, because it's good, just zoom in. Whoops, I don't want to do that. I want to zoom in. You can see where it appears that it's after dropping below his center frame. Yet the two things are at the exact same height. But if he brought that in a dead straight line to his theodolite, they would exactly match. A dead straight line from where it is, they would match the theodolite, and that would match absolutely perfect. The center frame would match right there. But if he pulled it in a dead straight, if he moved it in a dead straight line backwards, then back to where its own position here, then this would happen. It would look like this. only because of angular size change and perspective. It's not really dropping, it just appears that way. But what would happen as he moves it back, it would appear to drop below the center frame at first. When it's up close, right up against the lens, as you move it back, it starts to drop in center frame, and then suddenly it will just it will drop, but it won't appear to drop as severely as you move it back. But it will still be dropping a little bit, but it won't be as obvious. Okay, so I'm going to show you videos now. Right? Okay, I have two videos, both taken in a newly built hospital room, it's like a windowsill that's made for it's wide and big, made for keeping stuff on that nurses and doctors would need there and then, and for someone to sit on and stuff like that. So it's brand new. It's very much level surface, and I'm going to show here that my tilt is exactly at 0, and I'm going to show it from both sides. So I'm going to show a video going from left to right, and then I'm going to show the exact same thing from right to left. Okay, and I'm going to show how my camera's tilt is exactly at 0. So so when the exact same thing happens, and then I'll show you the shelf and whatever else, and I have more then to show after that. So I'll start with this. Okay, so there's no sound now. I'm just going to leave it play. I'm just showing the tilt. There will be some points where the focus won't be working brilliant. That's all that is, just a focus issue with the camera lens. It's just an iPhone 5 I'm using, but it's very good because it has a flat edge. So as I move it back, where what was center frame appears to drop below it. But if you can notice, the further back I move it, it doesn't appear to drop as much below center frame, but it's still dropping. But of course, when it's closer, it's much more noticeable. I'm moving it back in. I do this 2 or 3 times. I'm trying to keep it as steady as possible, so it can be seen, but also that it's somewhat in a line, moving a somewhat straight line. I'm holding an iPad. I'm recording with an iPad. It doesn't have a flat edge, so I'm trying to hold the iPad steady and do that at the same time. So that's why it might be a little bit shaky. But it doesn't matter. I'm showing the same thing. And the Plumbob app is very good because it just holds a center screen, and it shows a level from both ways, not just with a clinometer type thing where it only shows a tilt. This shows tilt and left to right, but the tilt is the main part. Now I can show this with clinometer too, but I'd rather use the Plumbob app because the Plumbob option, because it shows both ways better. And it's just the whole idea of the Plumbob is that it holds a center. Okay, that's the first one, and then we're going to show from the opposite side. Sorry. Now from left to right, there's a 1 degree from left to right, but the tilt is still perfectly 0. But there is a 1 degree from left to right on just at that part of the shelf. As you notice, I was using my right hand in the last one, and in this one I'm using my left hand. And it appears to drop again. It's not really dropping, it only appears that way. It's still actually in a dead straight line with my center lens there, tilt wise. Once again, I'm holding an iPad at the other hand, and I'm trying to keep that steady and record. So, and that doesn't have a steady flat edge, so I can't stand it. I just have to can't stand it freely. I have to hold it. It seems to drop below center frame, but it doesn't. And I have another way of making this video that will prove the same thing again. Sorry for the shakiness, I keep tipping off the phone with my hand. So the centre of that 0 or that Q, whatever it is actually matching the centre frame. It's actually matching the lens, centre of the lens. So that's both ways, from left to right and right to left, showing the exact same thing with 0 tilt. So that phone is perpendicular to the surface. Totally perpendicular to the surface both ways, both from left to right and from right to left. So showing, so I'm making a right angle with the phone and the surface in both from the left to right and both right to left. Now, I'm just going to show the last bit, which shows the shelf. I have my phone here kind of in the center of the area I was using. It's not in the center of the shelf, but the center of the area I was using, and you will see that there in that just the center area that there is no left to right. Also no left to right fall or incline or decline. Just showing the shelf. I flipped the iPad just to show the flat with the phone. If someone wanted to try and make a right angle there with that, they could. I didn't hold this long enough, but it doesn't matter, you still get to see there's a 0. The phone is not moving, so that shows exactly where the phone is. It's on the other side. Okay, now I'm going to go on to the next part I want to talk about. So this is right what happens because of Jesse, right, and other people seeing this. Okay, they then, right, when they take the zenith angles, right, the zenith angles are coming from GPS. Now GPS puts everything into Cartesian coordinate systems, and as I said in a previous video and in a previous presentation on Nathan Oakley's show, that Cartesian coordinate systems are always referencing a flat and motionless plane of land and or water. Excuse me. And the thing about that is that what happens with geodetic surveying, when they get their information, they originally gave the information of all the maps and all that. Planar and geodetic surveying is what gave the maps originally to GPS, let's just say. And so we have GPS and the use of all these maps because of surveying. But GPS, what happens is GPS puts everything into Cartesian coordinate systems. So GPS maps everything absolutely flat, and so does geodetic and planar surveying. But this is the problem, right? What happens is that because of things like that, and then they get zenith angles, right, from the GPS, right, and they put the 2 and 2 together, and it's understandable. They put 2 and 2 together, and they come up with 5. And to them, it seems like, yeah, the zenith angles are not parallel, and there's a drop in, a drop below the center frame, so that means the Earth must be a globe. But no, that's not what's happening. I'm just going to go into the next one here. Right, so here's what happens. Parallel zenith angles due to the non-insertion of unnecessary ECEF coordinates. Right, this is what it would look like if there wasn't the adding of unnecessary ECEF, which is Earth-centered, Earth-fixed coordinates. Right, and here is diverging zenith angles caused by the pre-assumption due to the insertion pre-assumption due to the insertion of ECEF coordinates. Okay, so when they add in Earth-centered, Earth-fixed coordinates, okay, right, they end up with diverging zenith angles. Now the reason for that is GPS puts everything into Cartesian coordinate systems. Okay, this is a tangent plane with the center of the zenith to the center, okay, of the tangent plane. Right, this tangent plane will become this, right, a 4-quadrant Cartesian coordinate system. Right, and GPS will use these, and geodetic surveying and planar surveying, I think, use these as well. But geodetic surveying, you map everything out in Cartesian coordinate systems, and so does GPS. So what happens is that they reference everything as flat in a 3D flat, in a flat and motionless plane. Okay, but this is the thing, right? They bring the zenith from there, right? Because once they have the tangent plane and the zenith to the center of the tangent plane, they then pre-assume that we're on a globe, okay? And that's when they add in the ECEF coordinates, right? And they add or that's when they bring ECEF coordinates, which is out-centered, out-fixed coordinates, into the picture. And they bring the zenith through the tangent plane to the center here of a pre-assumed sphere with a radius value of 3,959 miles. So consequently, when they put another tangent plane next to this and they do the same thing, they end up with diverging zenith angles. Now the problem is this ECEF is a pre-assumption. Now online they will call ECEF more or less talk about it interchangeably with Cartesian coordinate systems, but ECEF is not Cartesian coordinate systems. This is the Cartesian coordinate system, which is based on totally flat and motionless plane of land and of water. This part here is the ECEF coordinates, right? Now that is a pre-assumption of a sphere, so it's not. There's no evidence of this. This is just pre-assumed. So they get diverging zenith angles, as I've said in one of my last video presentations, that they get divergent zenith angles due to this pre-assumption. So what happens then is when they see this, okay, and this, yeah, and then they get these diverging zenith angles, they go, it's a globe. But that's not what's happening at all. This is a pre-assumption. So they're getting divergent zenith angles due to a pre-assumption, because they are putting the terms ECEF coordinates interchangeably with Cartesian coordinates and calling them Cartesian coordinates, but they're not. The Cartesian coordinates is an old coordinate system. It is not the ECEF coordinates. ECEF is just using X, Y, and Z, okay, and pre-assuming a sphere. So when they put a tangent plane next to another tangent plane, because all the zeniths are going to the center of a sphere, then because of that, right, they get diverging zenith angles, okay, in their final readouts. So they go, well, it's only divergent because it's a globe. No, it's divergent because you're pre-assuming a globe on a flat plane and bring a zenith to the center of a pre-assumed globe, right, with a pre-assumed radius. That's a radius that was never proven and has also been completely debunked. So that's why you have diverging zenith angles. All Cartesian coordinates, okay, have to have meeting right angles. You know, here, these are all right angles. They all have to meet, right? Because your coordinate systems, they use a rectangular box system to map out your. So if you want to find the coordinates, let's say this is it here, you must first go across here, and then you go up here, and then they're both meeting here. Then you have up with the zenith, and this is the height with the zenith. So this is your position, maybe on a mountain or a building or whatever, right? And it works exactly the same in a 2D, except for you just use the X and the Y, okay? So X goes across this way for positive and that way for negative. Y is forward for positive and backward for negative. And Z is up for positive and down for negative. But what happens is they bring the Z, the negative of the Z, through the tangent plane and through the earth and bring it right in ECEF coordinates, bring it to the center of a pre-assumed sphere. So they're pre-assuming this radius and pre-assuming this globe, right, and giving themselves diverging zenith angles, right, and seeing this, which is angular size change. It's just a perspective issue. They're actually in line. It just doesn't seem that way, and that's why people like Jesse Kozlowski, I'm butchering his surname. Apologies. That's why he will claim a globe, because he sees this as absolute evidence. But it's only a lack of investigation. That's all it is. He hasn't investigated. If he investigated both these things, he would realise that this is just angular size change, as I showed, and that this zenith to the centre of a sphere is just a pre-assumption. Because in reality, if you're working in this position using these Cartesian coordinates, and you're putting these everywhere, and they're all like the next one will be next to that, and at this side of it, and at the front of it, and at the back of it. So if you're making Cartesian coordinates all around each other, all around this Cartesian coordinate, that means they all have to have right angles. They all have to be perpendicular. So how can they have diverging zenith angles? There's only one way for them to have it, and that is the pre-assumption that the zenith is going to the center. All the zeniths are meeting at the center of a pre-assumed sphere. So that's all that's happening. So when we see photographs like this, that is not the drop. That is not the curve of the Earth. That's just a perspective issue due to angular size change, as I've already shown. That's all that is. So, and the diverging zenith angles, that's only because of a pre-assumption. This is what they map everything out in. This is what GPS uses. Is what geodetic surveying uses. Okay, and I think planar surveying uses these as well. But I don't know if planar surveying do. But I know geodetic surveying and GPS, you put everything into Cartesian coordinates, and from there they will change. They will, let's say, if they want to change the Cartesian coordinates and convert them to latitude and longitude. See, this is the point of another point of the ECEF coordinates. Once they bring all the zeniths, okay, to the center of a pre-assumed sphere, they then have the diverging zenith angles that allows them to convert the Cartesian coordinates to geographic coordinates, which is latitude and longitude. And once they have everything in Cartesian coordinates and they're bringing all the zeniths to the center of a pre-assumed sphere, they can then convert that to those zeniths and all the coordinates to other projections and other coordinate systems. But they have to start out with this. They always put everything into Cartesian coordinates, which is based on flat and motionless plane, right? Both geodetic surveying and GPS do that. And planar surveying always view it as flat anyway, whether they use Cartesian coordinates or not. But they have to pre-assume the sphere with the zenith angles meeting at the center of a pre-assumed sphere with a 3,959 mile radius. Then they can convert it to anything they want once they have that. But they have to have this, and they can't have this without the meeting of these. So they're wrong. They're wrong. Jesse Kozlowski he knows surveying. He's been doing it for years. He's obviously very good at doing his job and everything else, and he's retired and he had a career out of it and everything else. But geodetic surveying in general is wrong in their final estimation. That's all it is. Not what they're doing. It's only the only part that they're doing wrong is this part, the pre-assumption. If they stop the pre-assumption, then they won't have the problems. This is unnecessary. ECEF coordinates are unnecessary. The reason, right, another thing about the ECEF coordinates is all supposed satellite systems use ECEF coordinates. So they'll give everything in flat, but they'll put everything, all supposed satellite information. Let's just say it's going to be using the surface of the Earth. Give everything in flat, but they'll always pre-assume the zenith is going to the center of a pre-assumed sphere. So consequently, geodetic surveying gave everything to GPS, and planar surveying on a more local level gave everything to GPS. But geodetic surveying already pre-assumed the globe, and so they send the zenith into the center of a pre-assumed sphere. Now, where the GPS signals are coming from, I don't know, right? I don't know where they're coming from, but I know that they're pre-assuming a sphere, so they're not going around the sphere. That is for definite, because this is a pre-assumption, and a pre-assumption is not proof, and that's the end of that. This is your world, and you can't have this without the joining of these, and you can't have these on that. Thank you.